today we shall consider a new paradigm of computing, namely membrane computing. So, the models of computing can be considered as conventional models and unconventional models. What are the unconventional models of computing? The Turing machine is a conventional model of computing. In 1936, Turing defined a Turing machine, and he was able to foresee and tell what is possible with the computer and what is not possible with the computer even before 15 years the computer was built. And whatever he has said, it is called Church-Turing hypothesis, and it has stood the test of time. But Turing machine, we have already seen what it is and all that. It is not random access. So, to simulate the current day system in an exact manner, register machines have been defined. So, they are also conventional models of computing. The connection between register machines and Turing machines have been studied. Time wise, if something can be done in one in t units of time, at the most it may take t squared or t cube units of time in the other. So, polynomial or non-polynomial time will not be affected by simulating one model with the other. One model is the Turing machine, the other model is the random access machine. Now, in contrast to this, we have the unconventional models of computing. What are the unconventional models of computing? Paradigms like DNA computing, membrane computing, quantum computing, they are unconventional models of computing. So, these have come into existence in the recent times, and we have found that certain problems can be tackled in a very efficient manner using this, but the practical use of this is still a question and is being explored. Now, why we have to study unconventional models? What is the need when already existing models like Turing machines etc. are good enough? We have already seen what is meant by a NP complete problem. They do not seem to have efficient deterministic polynomial time algorithm. So, no efficient algorithms in classical computers, and the classical computers are deterministic in nature. They can do step by step some operation. Even though today we talk about parallelism, parallel computers, we have the number of processes bounded. So, in a parallel machine you may have 16 processes, 64 processes, whatever it is bounded by a number n. So, the problem may be divided into 16 sub problems and given to the sub processes, and they can work simultaneously on the problem. But when the problem size increases, the number of processes cannot be increased. You have 16 processes, means you always have 16, you cannot make it 64, then 128 and so on, you cannot increase the number of processes, right. Whereas, in the new models of computation like DNA computing and membrane computing, unbounded parallelism is there. Because of the unbounded parallelism, you can have DNA strands and they can exist within 1 cubic centimeter of a solution, millions of DNA strands can exist, and because of that the actions take place parallelly and you can have a number of operations performed simultaneously. You have unbounded parallelism there. That is why we try to have unconventional models, so that some of the NP complete problems they can be solved in linear time or in polynomial time. Whenever you have to make exhaustive search, then it is always exponential in the classical computers, but by making use of the unbounded parallelism, and in DNA computing we also have the Watson-Crick complementarity. Because of those things we can try to reduce the time from exponential to polynomial. Today we shall see about membrane computing. It is a bio-inspired model, or it is a model of natural computing, but it is inspired by biology. So, what is the inspiration? The process which takes place in a cell, the reactions which develop in cell regions, the processing of substances, energy and information in these regions, and through the membranes which delimit them are the computational processes, and we try to simulate these processes and see that anything we can define in a formal manner using this model of computation. So, if you look into the different branches of natural computing, you can divide them like this: models inspired by nature, that is bio-inspired computing. Under this comes neural computing. You know that nowadays neural networks play a very important role in the field of computer science, and they have come into existence because of the simulation of brain. In neural computing you try to simulate the way the brain works, and the neural networks are implemented with the electronic silicon computer. So, the implementation is through the electronic media. And you also have what is known as an evolutionary computing, genetic algorithms. They try to solve an algorithm making use of representing an instance using a bit string, and then they perform the operations of crossover, mutation, selection, etc., which happens in the actual evolution of humans or any other organism in nature. And because they simulate the evolution, it is called the evolutionary computing, and genetic algorithms come under this. Genetic algorithms are mostly heuristic algorithms, and even though they are heuristic algorithms, in most cases they give very good solutions to some problems because they converge. Even though the convergence cannot be properly proved, in most of the examples where it is considered, it is found that by taking the model in a suitable manner and representing the strings in a suitable manner, the convergence can be achieved. Even for network algorithms like routing, etc., evolutionary computing has been used, and it is a very good area of research nowadays. You also have what is known as swarm intelligence, ant colony paradigms, and so on, which are biologically inspired. In contrast to that, you also have some models which simulate nature and show how nature is being developed, like fractal geometry and cellular automata. You might have heard about the game of life and so on, how it is done with cellular automata. That is the second one. The third one is actually computing with molecules or computing with natural objects, that comes under molecular computing. The actual thing is the molecules and how they behave and interact with each other, giving solutions for problems, and that is called molecular computing, DNA computing, peptide computing. They all come under this, and the implementation is really using the DNA strands or the peptides and the molecules. So, the implementation is through biomedia. In 1998, the paradigm membrane computing was proposed because it tried to simulate the behavior of what happens in a cell, the proteins, the enzymes, the membrane structure, how they develop, they pass through the membranes, changing from one form to another and so on. And initially the theoretical model was developed, and the first paper in this area was published in 2000. At that time it was thought that there are two possibilities. One, it could be implemented using the silicon computer like the evolutionary algorithms and so on. The other one is you may actually use membranes or cells and try to simulate the algorithms. This was the question in 2000, and in 2010 now this looks that it is not possible at all, how to make them make the algorithms be simulated by actual cells, whereas this looks more promising, that is this may develop as a bio inspired model of computing like evolutionary computing or neural computing, and will be implemented in the electronic media only. So, how do we go about defining and what is the motivation behind this new paradigm of computing? A cell has a complex structure with several compartments delimited inside the main membrane by several inner membranes, the nucleus, the Golgi apparatus, several vesicles and so on. In principle these membranes are all similar. So, we can consider the plasma membrane and its functions. A membrane in an animal cell looks like this. You can look at it as a big membrane inside which it has got several other things. This may be looked at as another membrane, inside it something happens. This may be looked at as another membrane, certain things happen here like chromosomes or protein molecules develop and they pass through the membrane to the outer region, or from the outer region they come into the inner region and some reactions take place. This is modeled in membrane computing. So, the membrane systems is a new field of research started in 98 and first paper published in 2000. It is motivated by the way nature computes at the cellular level, and this was introduced by Professor George Pan of Romania, and because of that it is called SNP Systems. This is a class of distributed parallel computing devices, because whatever happens within the membranes occurs in parallel, and then messages pass from inside to outside of each membrane, and crossing the membranes they carry some information. So, you can look at them as distributed model as well. So, it is a distributed parallel model of computing. There are three fundamental features which have to be taken into account, and they are the membrane structure, that is the structure of the membrane, and the second one is the multisets, that is these are the proteins or the enzymes or the chromosomes inside the membrane. You can look at them as chemical compounds and they are represented as multiset. Later on we will see that you can look at them as strings, arrays, etc. And these multisets of objects evolve, they change from time to time, passing through the membranes and so on, and that is controlled by a prescribed set of rules. So, the paradigm has three components: the structure, the multisets of objects and the rules. A membrane has the following structure. The outermost membrane is called the skin membrane. Within that you have membranes. This is membrane 2 is inside membrane 1, 1 is the outermost membrane or the skin membrane. Membrane 1, 5, 8 are inside this, and within membrane 1 you have membrane 2, within membrane 2 you have 3 and 4, and within 5 you have 6, and within 6 you have 7, within 8 you have 9 and 10. These are the membranes. The outermost one is called the skin, and a membrane which does not have any other membrane inside it is called an elementary membrane, and the region enclosed by a membrane are considered, and some of the membranes will be considered as output membranes. We will see what it is. The objects inside the membrane are atomic in nature and they have some structure. You can consider them as symbol objects. This is the one which we will consider mainly. You can also have string objects. Recently array objects and graph objects have also been considered. Generally context free rules are used, in many cases context sensitive rules are also used for processing string objects, and symbol objects you have catalyst and sometimes cooperating rules are used. Sometimes for strings you also use splicing rules, and the symbol objects, usually 2 or 3 objects can combine and form one object. So, that is also allowed. For strings you use what is known as a rewriting P systems. You can also use what is known as a splicing P systems. We shall see the basic model and the definition. The formal definition of a P system or a membrane is like this. It is of degree n, means there are n membranes, where you have V is the total alphabet, it is objects, T is a subset of V which is the output alphabet, C is the set of catalysts. The initial definitions contained the use of catalysts, in later definitions they do not consider catalysts separately, rather they use some sort of an context sensitive rules. Actually catalysts encourage the development of some objects, but they do not themselves change. Like what happens in a chemical reaction, catalysts they speed up the reaction, but they do not take part in the reaction. Mu is the membrane structure which we have seen earlier, with an outermost membrane called the skin membrane and inside membranes, and the membranes have rules. Suppose there are n membranes, each membrane has rules. Membrane 1 will have rules R1, membrane n will have rules Rn, and so on. Small rho 1, small rho 2 up to small rho 1, they represent some sort of a priority relation. That is, when you have one rule and having higher priority than the other rule, the second rule cannot be used as long as you are able to apply the first rule. So, some sort of a partial order is there among the rules, and that is called the priority relation. And initially each membrane will contain some objects, they are known as W1, W2, Wn. So, the objects are arranged as string and represented, but the order of the symbols in the string does not matter as long as you consider symbol objects. And one of the membranes is taken as the output membrane, and when the computation stops, whatever happens in the output membrane or whatever is left in the output membrane is taken as the output. Sometimes objects are sent out to the environment and that is taken as the output. Both models are considered. Now, let us take an example and see what happens. This is an example with a multiset of objects or symbol objects. You have one membrane outside, that is the skin membrane 1, within 1 you have 2, membrane 2, and within 2 you have membrane 3. 4 is another membrane which is within the membrane 1, but it is outside 2, and this is taken as the output membrane. The computation stops, means you are not able to apply any rule. Initially this contains 2 symbols C and D, this contains one symbol A, this contains 3 symbols AA, C. The rules which can be applied within one membrane are given here. This is the rule which can be applied within 3, these are the 2 rules which can be applied in 2, and these are the rules which can be applied in 1, and these are the rules which can be applied in 4. Initially 4 does not have any other object. Now, you see that you have priority relation here. As long as there is a C, you can use this rule or this rule for this C, but when you apply that you cannot apply the rule A goes to A into B for these two A's. Only when you are not able to apply a rule for C, you can apply a rule for A. This is called priority relation. Now, let us see how this system behaves. Everything happens parallel in all the membranes and the objects evolve parallelly. So, look at this delta means the membrane will dissolve, this object A will dissolve this membrane. Similarly, here if you have A and C in this membrane, that will dissolve this membrane. Delta represents dissolution, and here there are two symbols C and D, and the rule is A goes to delta, there is no A here. So, no rule is applicable here. You have A here, no C, you cannot apply this rule, but you can apply the rule A goes to A in 3 here, and the next instance this will be sent as A inside membrane 3. When an object evolves, you also have something like in, out, etc., which tells you where the evolved object has to be sent. So, in 3 means A evolves as 3 and it is sent into this membrane. Look at these 3 objects. As I mentioned earlier, you cannot apply this rule when you can apply this rule. So, C evolves as B or C, you can use either of them. So, if you use this rule, C evolves as C and is sent in membrane 4. So, at the next step what we get is this, the A has been sent here, CD remains as it is, 2 A's remain here, the C has been sent as C here. Now, the next step you can make use of this rule, because there is a here and membrane 3 can just get dissolved. Now, there is no C here, so you can apply a rule for this each one of the A's. 1A will evolve into 1A and kept here, 1A will evolve into 1A and 1B, A will be sent into 2, right. Let us see what happens. So, in the previous step you had A, because of applying this rule this membrane gets dissolved, CD comes out. Here 1A becomes 1A and 1B, so 1A is sent here, B remains here. So, 2 A's generate 2 A's which are sent here and 2 B's remain here. In this one there is a rule C is D out. So, this C changes into D and is sent out. So, in the next step we have AACD here, BBD here, because this membrane has dissolved. Membrane 3 has dissolved, 2 remains, and within that you have this. 4 does not contain anything at this stage. Now, you have a 1A and a 1C. So, you can apply this rule, both the objects AC are consumed and the membrane is dissolved. You will be left with A and D and that comes out. So, AD comes out, you already have a BBD here, this membrane has been dissolved. Now, what happens? You have a rule for DD. So, this D and this D can combine and you can apply this rule, both the D's get consumed and A is evolved and it is sent into 4. Now, the situation is like this, A has been sent here, ABB remains here, but I do not have any rule to apply here. So, ABB remains here and then A is sent here. At this position the computation halts. So, we have the rules of this following form, U goes to V, where U is a string over V and V is V dash or V dash delta, delta means the membrane dissolves. Apart from that, we also specify a target A here, A out, A in, that is the object evolves as A and something will be sent into a membrane or sent out of the membrane, or it will remain in the same membrane. Usually when it is A here, we do not specify it explicitly. It is, if we do not specify A out or A in, it is understood that it remains in the same membrane. So, x goes to V tar, where x goes to V is a context free rule and tar will be here out or in, here usually is not specified. Now, we can look at the P systems as generative devices, generating some languages, or computing devices, computing some functions, or decidability devices which tackle some decidability problems. It has been proved that they are computationally complete, or we can simulate type 0 grammars given in the form of a matrix grammar. So, whatever you can do with a Turing machine, you can achieve with a P system, and so it is computationally complete system. Now, we must remember that whenever a new paradigm is defined, new computing paradigm is defined, you must show that whatever is possible is the current paradigm, it is also possible with a new paradigm. And so, either you simulate with Turing machine or a register machine is new system can simulate a Turing machine or a register machine, this you show, or if you are not showing that directly, indirectly you show that something equivalent to a Turing machine can be simulated. So, we will not go into those results at present, we just give some example to show that how the membrane systems can be used for computing something or generating a language or deciding some problem. Let us look at this case. We want to have a system which decides whether k divides n, k and n are two integers. We want to design a system which will find this out. So, we have this system where in the outermost membrane or the skin membrane is labeled 1, you have two membranes inside it 2 and 3. 2 has the following rules and 1 has this rule, and initially you load this with n A's and k C's if you want to find out whether k divides n or not, and 1 D. So, initially you start with objects n A, k C's and 1 D, and at the end if you are left with 1 A here, that means k divides n. If you are left with 2 A's here, that means k does not divide n. So, when the computation stops, you will have 1 A or 2 A's here. 1 A will tell you that k divides n and 2 A's will tell you that k does not divide n. Let us see how the system works, taking some particular example. Suppose I have 6 and 2, 2 divides 6. So, I should get 1 A in the end here. Let us see how this happens. We have a power 6 c squared d. Using these rules, d evolves as d only. We had all the 4 rules, but we may not be applying all of them simultaneously. Sometimes we will use something, and otherwise when it is not applicable, we will use another thing. So, with d it is possible to have d goes to d or d goes to delta, but if you use this, the membrane will get dissolved and we will not end up with anything. So, what happens is, use the rule d goes to d and AC goes to C dash. So, 2 A's and 2 C's will be consumed to form 2 C dash. So, you will be left with 4 A's and 2 C dash. Now, use the rule AC dash goes to C, this D is just used this rule, and so it remains as D. So, 2 A's and 2 C dash will be consumed to produce 2 C's. So, you end up with 2 A's, 2 C's and 1 D. Again repeating the same process, using this rule 2 C dash will be produced. So, you will end up with this. Now, you can use the rule D goes to delta, D delta, and so this membrane will be dissolved and the entire thing comes out. Now, I cannot apply any rule, because the only rule applicable here is C dash D goes to A. So, that is not possible here. So, the computation halts. When the computation halts, I am left with 1 A here, that means K divides N. Suppose on the other hand, I have A power 5 and C squared, 2 does not divide 5, in that case I should end up with 2 A's here. Let us see how this happens. Again repeating the same process, 2 A's and 2 C's are consumed to produce 2 C dash. So, we are left with this. Again 2 A's and 2 C dash are consumed to produce 2 C. So, I will end up with this. At this stage only 1 A is there. So, 1 A and 1 C will be consumed and C dash will be produced. So, we will end up with C dash D. At this time if you use the rule D goes to D delta, the membrane 2 will be dissolved and it will come out, and you have C dash D here. There is a rule in membrane 1, D C dash goes to A in 3. So, this rule is applicable and the A will go here. There are no rules here. So, this computation halts producing 2 A's. So, this shows that if at the end we end up with 1 A here, K divides N, if we end up with 2 A's, K does not divide N. This is to show how something can be computed using the membrane system. Now, we can use it as a generative device generating a language. Let us see how a membrane system can generate the Dyck set. What is a Dyck set? A Dyck set is a well formed strings of parentheses. If you look at the left parenthesis as A, the right parenthesis as B, a string like AB is a well formed string, AA, BB is a well formed string, AB is a well formed string, and so on. This particular system with alphabet AB can generate. Here again we are using it as a symbol object. Let us see how the symbols are sent out. You have to take the order in which the symbols are sent out to the environment. There is no separate output membrane here. The environment collects the outputs and arranges them in the order in which they are sent out. So, you have only one symbol A here to start with, and these are the rules. So, initially for this A, if you use the rule A goes to A out B, this A evolves into 2 A's and 1 B, out of which one is retained here, one is sent out. So, with this A, if you apply this rule, you are left with 1 A and 1 B here, and 1 A is sent out. Now, again for this A and B we can use the rule. For B, if you use the rule B goes to B, it remains here. For A again I can use the same rule, A goes to A out B. So, I will be left with one more A and B, and this A will be sent out. So, 2 A's have been sent out. Now, you have to collect the symbols in the order in which they come out. If 2 symbols come out at the same time, they can be taken in any order. Actually, you have to consider both possibilities. So, inside we have A, B, B, B evolves, B can use B goes to B or B goes to B out. So, if you use the rule B goes to out, B comes out, again this B also comes out, you are left with A. So, for this A, if you use the rule A goes to A out B, this evolves into 1 A and 1 B, B remains here, A comes out, A has come out, B remains here. Now, if you use the rule B goes to B out, B comes out. Now, we have applied the rule in a particular order and we get this. This is a well formed strings of parenthesis A, B, B, A, B. If you look at A as the left parenthesis, B as the right parenthesis, this is a well formed string, and such a set is called a Dyck set. This we already know. If we have used the rules in a different order, some other string would have been formed here, but that will still be a well formed string of parenthesis. This can be checked very easily, and this example shows that you can use the membrane system or P system for a generating language like the Dyck set here. Now, you can also use the system to solve NP complete problems, that is the motivation really for using this unconventional models of computing. Let us consider the SAT problem and see how this can be solved using a membrane system. Here we are using a slightly different version of the membrane system, where the membranes have some charges. They can acquire positive charge, negative charge or neutral charge. After the first model was defined, there have been several variations and there have been more than 200-300 papers in this area in the last 10 years, and several PhD theses and MS theses have been written in this area, and all the details are given in the P Systems web page, which can be easily accessed. Now, let us see what is a SAT problem. We already studied this. We know that a Boolean expression can be expressed in conjunctive normal form as a conjunction of clauses. C1, C2, Cm are classes, and they each Ci is of this form yi1, yipi, where each yi is a literal. A literal is a variable or the negation of a variable. So, it is of this form. As an example, you can consider this. We want to design a P system which will find out whether this Boolean expression is satisfiable or not. This has got two clauses, this is the one, this is the one, it has got two variables. The system for that will have two symbols A1 and A2 corresponding to the two variables x1 and x2, and one more symbol which will keep on increasing C0, C1, C2, which is a counter which keeps track of the time. There will be m plus 2 membranes, one inside the other, where m is the number of classes. There are two classes here, corresponding to them you have two membranes, one innermost membrane 0 which contains all the symbols initially, and outermost skin membrane is there. These symbols denote the labels of the membrane. And what are these symbols? These symbols represent the charge. All membranes have neutral charge, and initially A1 can take the value T1 or T2, and that possibility is considered, and you split it up as T1 and F1. Consider splitting of a membrane. So, the membrane splits as two membranes, the counter increases from C0 to C1, showing that one instance has elapsed. There are two possibilities T1 and F1 which are given here. The membrane 0 splits into two membranes with label 0, but one gets a positive charge and other one gets a negative charge. The next instant this positive charge is carried on to the next membrane, and that membrane also is split into two membranes. So, this one becomes a neutral charge, whereas the next membrane which has been split, the membrane 1, both the labels are 1, please note that, then this gets a positive charge, this gets a negative charge. When the neutral membrane is obtained, the second variable is given both the possible values T2 and F2, and again splitting takes place. So, you have T2 and F2 here, T2 and F2 here. So, the four possible assignments are given by this. They acquire positive and negative charge, then this membrane acquires neutral charge. Now, this positive charge is carried on here and this becomes neutral, and the next step everything becomes neutral. At that time the time instance is 2n plus 1 C5. Now, that C5 evolves into a particular symbol T. Now, after this what happens is, whether this portion will be satisfied. There are two classes, this is one class. This class will be satisfied if x1 is a 1 or x2 is a 1. It will not be satisfied if both are false. So, the next instance, if some assignment satisfies the first class, the membrane dissolves. So, you find that this assignment satisfies, this assignment satisfies, this assignment satisfies, and so these 3 membranes will dissolve, but this will not get dissolved. So, you get this, and the next instance you find out whether this assignment is or this class is satisfied. This will be satisfied when both x1 x2 are false, or if one of them is false. It will not be satisfied when both of them are true. If it is satisfied, the membrane 2 dissolves. So, you find that this dissolves, right. So, in the because it does not satisfy the first class, this does not dissolve, because it does not satisfy the second class, this does not dissolve. Now, looking at this, the next instance, if there is a T, it is ejected out of the membrane 3, which is the skin membrane. So, next instance T is ejected out and you get 2 T's outside. These 2 T's tell you that there are 2 possible assignments which satisfy this Boolean expression. Again, this particular model I have not defined very formally, I have only informally described how it works, and you see that the time taken is something like 2n plus 1 plus say some m or something like that, where m is the number of classes here. You can see that if x1 is a 0 or and x2 is a 1, or x1 is a 1 and x2 is a 0, it will be satisfied. If both are 1 or both are 0, it will not be satisfied. So, out of the 4 assignments, 2 assignments satisfy this, that is why you get 2 T's outside the skin membrane. So, this is just to show that you can solve NP complete problem using a P system in linear time. Similarly, other problems like k dimensional matching, Hamiltonian path problem, they can also be solved in linear time. In the last 1 decade, there has been lot of papers in this area of membrane computing. There have been additional features attached to the basic model, like an object can create a membrane, and message carriers, how the objects carry messages, they can have some positive charge, negative charge, and some threshold value depending upon which the evolution takes place, and so on. So, if you give additional features, how does the system behave? This has been studied in detail, and in all cases with some amount of membranes, we have been able to achieve universal computability, that is whatever you can achieve with the Turing machine, you can achieve with this. And it has been of interest to study with what it has been of interest to study the minimum number of membranes or the minimum number of rules used. That is called descriptional complexity. There is be a trade off. If you try to reduce the number of membranes, the rules may increase and vice versa. And also, if you process string objects, again splicing rules can be used, and you can also have contextual rules for string objects, where contextual grammar is a particular type of a grammar. And the non-deterministic use, how do you capture? You can also design P automata looking at it as a accepting device. These are some of the features which are considered in membrane computing. There have been other features as well. This is only a few aspects I am mentioning. Another type of a P system which has been studied is tissue P systems, and the tissue P systems, they are more neural like P systems, or they resemble neurons in a particular manner. Cells are one particular type and neural cells or neurons are another type of cells, and tissue P systems model them. These cells live together and are associated with tissues and organs. Intercellular communication becomes an essential feature. This communication is done through protein channels established among the membranes of the neighboring cells. So, these tissue P systems are motivated by the way neurons cooperate. Neuron has a body containing a nucleus. Their membranes are prolonged by two classes, fibers, dendrites, axon, and they process impulses in the complex net established by synapses. Synapses is a connect between an end bulb of a neuron and the dendrites of another neuron. The synthesis of an impulse and its transmission to adjacent neurons are done according to the states of the neuron. So, here we also consider states. Look at this, this is a neuron and these are the dendrites of the neuron. This is called the soma or the nucleus. This is the axon, myelin sheaths. So, this is one neuron and this is another neuron, this is another neuron. This sort of a thing, connection between this and this, they are called synapses. So, in a formal way you can define it this way, but instead of going into the formal definition, let me take an example and explain. You have something like this. You have one neuron, another neuron, another neuron, this is a cell. Now, these are synapses, there is a direct connection between this and this, this and this, this and this, this and this. This is sending out to the environment. This is the output neuron which sends things to the output environment. And with each neuron a state is associated, symbol objects are associated. Initially you have state S here. In this particular example there is only one state. In general you can have more than one state. Each neuron has a collection of states. There is an initial states, initial set of symbols with that, rules are there, and the rules will be of this form: one state and a string of objects. The number of objects is represented as a string. This goes to another state and evolves into this. There is a set of objects X, they evolve as Y. Here we consider three models where you can just use one rule, or there are two rules, you can use only one rule here, or you can try to use one rule several times, or two or three different rules for different symbol objects. They are called the one mode, the parallel mode and the maximal mode. And replicate, three ways you can send the objects. One is replicated mode, that is, for example, this A, when it evolves into A, one copy will be sent here, one copy will be sent here, that is the replication mode. In another mode, this rule is used, then S A goes to S and A, and that A will be sent to only one of them. Suppose an A evolves into 1 B and C, then if you send both B and C to one membrane, it is called the one mode. If you send one to one membrane, another to another membrane, that is called the spread mode. So, we have three types of transmitting modes: replication. In the replication, each symbol A is sent to each one of the cells sigma j, such that I j belongs to synapses. That is, if there is a connection between cell I and cell j, then whatever evolves in cell I is sent to all such j. 1. All symbols A appearing in W dash, or all symbols which have been evolved, they are sent to the cells, only one of the cells j. And in the spread mode, the symbols A appearing in W dash, they are non-deterministically distributed among the cells sigma j. So, in this example let us see what happens when you use the minimal mode, when you use the parallel mode, when you use the maximal mode and so on. Suppose I use the parallel mode and send this out. So, if you use the parallel mode, A will evolve as A, there is only one A here. So, it will evolve as A, and if you use the mode replication for transmission, if you use the replicated mode, this A will be sent as 1 A here and 1 A here. Then here you can use this rule, here also you can use this rule. So, this will evolve into another A and will be sent back. So, at the third step you get 2 A's here, because the rule application mode is parallel. For the 2 A's you have to apply the same rule. So, when I apply this rule, 2 A's will be sent here, 2 A's will be sent here, and again using these rules those 2 A's will be sent back and these 2 A's will be sent back. So, you will end up with 4 A's at the 5th instance of time. At the 7th instance you will end up with 8 A's and so on. So, once you start emitting using this rule, all the A's will be simultaneously sent out and you will get 2 power n A's. That is what is meant by this. N parallel application is 2 power n. If you use the minimal mode and one mode, this A will go here, again go here, will go here, will go here and so on. Finally, at some time it will be sent out. So, only one A will come out. So, what you get is just 1. So, similarly the other things are presented here. Again this has a lot of application in the sense that this can be used in a different ways, can be looked at as a variant model of the membrane system. Recently another sort of a membrane model has been defined. This is called SNP systems or spiking neural P system, which more or less resembles the neuron in an exact manner. You have spikes in a neuron and they spike and then go through to another membrane. This is the situation which represents the neurons and the connection between them. What happens is you have some spikes, and these spikes when they enter the neuron like this, when they exceed a threshold value, they spike again, this neuron spikes and the spike is sent out. So, this comes out and slits and gets into the synapses here, and this can be modeled in a very efficient manner and we get what is known as a spiking neural P systems. The current interest is in this spiking neural P systems because they seem to have a lot of similarity between spiking neural P systems and Petri nets. Petri nets is a very well known model, and so you can use it for many practical purposes. So, you have Petri nets on the one hand, and on the other hand you have SNP systems. Here again there are several variations are there, mild difference in the definition, and in Petri nets also you have variations. You have colored Petri nets, timed Petri nets and so on. So, it is an interesting study to study what is possible here, how to simulate it with the corresponding model. So, one model will correspond with some particular model here, another way a particular model can simulate this, which one can simulate it in an efficient manner, that is an interesting model of study. And in SNP system we have seen only spikes, we can also have anti spikes, and that is the current interest now. how you can use spikes and anti-spikes to generate binary strings, so that a language will be generated. What sort of a language will be generated by a SN system or a SNP system and so on. So, that is an interesting area of study. So, this model of paradigm membrane computing has several variations and is a current area of research. Even though initially it was that it will be useful to simulate it with actual cells, later it was found that it is not possible. So, currently the interest is how to make use of this interesting paradigm and use it in the conventional model, simulate and get good results, so that we can solve some difficult problems in an efficient manner.